correct me if I'm wrong here, Gerry, but it seems to me that what you're saying is important, that when we're listening to people, that we're listening out for what's actually important to them. Now,
rather than what's important to me.
Rather than what's important to us as helpers, because sometimes we can all be guilty of putting our own agenda first. Sometimes we can be really passionate about perhaps getting a message across or putting a point across or giving voice to our opinion. And if those people whom we're interacting with perhaps might not be as extroverted or as confident as what we are, then they can end up taking a back seat and taking quite a stagnant role in the interaction. So when we are communicating with people, if we are just simply reflecting back what we hear as being important to them, then it doesn't really matter whether they are communicating or reacting to our words from a place of anger, frustration, fear, low confidence. It doesn't really matter. We can begin to tap into what's actually important for our clients to better understand them.
But it's also true that, and all of us, I think, have experienced this one way or another, sometimes a friend will come and try to unburden himself or herself, talk about an issue and so on and so forth, and all we do is listening. And the formula usually is after the person tells his or her story, agony or whatever it is, they'll say something like this: "Thanks for listening." We're not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it at all. Sometimes it's appropriate.
Exactly.
But sometimes it's not helpful.
Right. So what's the next step? What do we do after we listened? Well, I think what's important is to check our understanding of what the client says, to make sure that we've picked out, as Kain said, what is important, not for us, but important for the client. And this is the skill of empathy, not as understanding, but the skill of empathy as a communication skill, to communicate what we think our understanding is of the issues that the other person is talking about. We're not fully empathic. For instance, the other day I said to a friend of mine, maybe this was a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about some of the issues in my own life. And I said to him finally, I said, "You're not very empathic, are you?" He was outraged. He said, "I understood everything that you said. I know just what your situation is. I know just how you feel about that." I said, "You've never mentioned that to me." So there's he was passively empathic. If I'm trying to be helpful with somebody, I need to be actively empathic.
Now, just to wrap this video up, I'll share with you a quick story of where I failed miserably at this a couple of years ago. Now, I used to run and manage my own counselling / coaching practice, so I would help in a paraprofessional context, not as a psychologist or anything like this, just more in a very, very loose helping capacity. Now, a lady had phoned up and booked a number of sessions with me. She informed me that she'd been to see this certain counsellor for quite a number of years and that nothing was happening. So I said, well, listen, let's meet up, let's have a conversation, let's have a dialogue, and we'll see if we can work out what the solution is, or what the goal is, or what it is you actually want. We'll see if we can work out how it is that I can best help you. So the lady turned up, and we sat down in my studio, and I said, so why are we here today? Very, very broad, open question that allows those people that we interact with to take a conversation wherever they want to, right? Very inviting. This lady then proceeded to monologue me to death for around about 45 minutes. Says, well, Kain, my friends don't appreciate me. My husband has cheated on me. I don't like my job. My children don't take me serious. I have a problem with religion. I have a problem with politics. I feel this. I feel that. And to be honest with you, my voice inside switched off. I stopped listening after about 5 minutes. All I could think of was, my goodness, I'm so bored. I am so completely disengaged with you right now. You are the most boring, self-consumed woman that I've ever worked with my entire life. So, okay.
If you had to do it over again, what would you do?
I would have used the Lazarus technique.
The Lazarus technique.
The Lazarus technique. Now, I'm not sure if this is something you actually taught or whether it's something that I invented based upon something that you introduced me to in one of the earlier versions of your book.
Tell us about it.
So, I'll finish off the story, then I'll wrap it up with the Lazarus technique.
Alrighty.
So, after around about 45 minutes, the woman was in tears, and I said, right, okay, so can I just establish here? What do you want? So we're going back to step number 1 and step number 2. She told me for 45 minutes all about her problem. I didn't intervene. I pretended I was listening, but I wasn't listening. I was completely disengaged. At the end of it, I said, right, so tell me, step 2, what would you like? You've told me all about what you don't want. What do you want? How can I help you? And she said, I just want you to make me feel better. My last counsellor couldn't do this. And I was absolutely stumped. And this was before I developed the vocabulary to be able to articulate to this lady that she had come to me with a set of completely unrealistic expectations. So, cut the story short, in response to Gerry's question, what is the Lazarus technique? The Lazarus technique is a fantastic way in our communications that we can cut through the crap. Is it okay to use that word? Cut through the crap. You know how sometimes some people begin dialoguing with us or monologuing at us or something like that, and we're just feeling completely bombarded, like we don't want to interrupt, we don't want to be seen as rude, but this person's being completely rude and disrespectful to us by just talking at us. It's not a healthy communication. The Lazarus technique was Albert Lazarus?
I forget his name.
You forget his name, my goodness. Okay. Arthur or Albert Lazarus, one of the two. And he had this concept of simplification, this principle of simplification. Simplify everything, especially in communications. He said, when a person is communicating with us in a completely erratic way, we can ask them to share with us in just one word what they actually want. And if I could go back to that communication, that interaction I had with that lady, I would have just asked, excuse me, I come in peace. Could I ask you, just in 1 or 2 words, just to tell me specifically what it is that you actually want?
Did you mean, what do you want from me in this situation? Not what do you want in all of life?
In life, not what do you want. What do you want the world to become, and what do you actually want from this conversation right here, right now? Okay. Not what do you want from over here, what do you want for your dinner tonight?
All right.
What do you want right now? Because this one question would have allowed me to jump from step 1 or stage 1 into stage 2 in seconds view. And this would have been me being at my most effective in this communication.
You can interrupt other people creatively.
And respectfully.
And respectfully. I remember an incident that I had with, he was a vice president. We had a 3-day meeting, and then we were debriefing some surveys, and the people who ran this 3-day meeting each debriefed one of the people there. So I was talking to a vice president of this company, and so he sat down and I said, well, how did it go? And off he went to the races. He just went blah, 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 blah.
You went what, sorry, Gerry?
Here's what I said.
Blah, 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 blah.
No, I said, shut up. He went like, what? I said, shut up. You're doing exactly what they said you do in the survey. I said, what you don't do. That dialogue tends to be an improbable event in life. I says, what you don't do is dialogue with people. I said, we're going to have a dialogue. He says, all right. I said, here's what a dialogue is. I talk, you talk. I talk, you talk. And when I talk to you, I relate to what you said to me. And when you talk to me, you relate what I said to you. And at the end, if we do that, we're going to co-create an outcome. We're going to use dialogue as a process for co-create an outcome that satisfies both of us. I, as a professional helper or as a consultant, and you as the vice president of this company. And so we started, and we went back and forth, and I had to stop him and say, you don't seem to have listened to what I said. So we went back and forth for about 10 minutes, and finally he said, can we stop? I said, sure. He said, this is an awful lot of work. He said, but I now begin to understand what my wife has been telling me for the past 30 years.
You don't listen. I'm guessing there's a really, really important lesson that we can really draw from this. Dialogue hasn't historically always been a great strength of mine. It's something that I'm still improving on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes in life we can become more focused and transfixed on the monologue and the thoughts that go on inside of our heads. And when it comes to interacting with others, we can end up responding more to our internal dialogues than the dialogue that we're actually engaging in with other people. And this gives us a choice in every single conversation and communication that we have. We're either in dialogue with other people, which makes for the foundations of a healthy relationship, or we're going to be in dialogue with ourselves, which means that we're never actually going to be fully connected or engaged with the words or the unspoken words that those other people who we interact with are speaking.